Hi, welcome to the Catholic Corner. I'm Monsignor Walter Nolan. I can't believe it. It's a little over a month since Hurricane Sandy devastated parts of New Jersey and other states and so many areas. I was going to say especially the shore towns, but lots of places have been affected deeply by it. Many of us were left in the dark for a few days, some more than a few days, a week or maybe even two. The Newark, New Jersey paper, the Star-Ledger, reported that Hurricane Sandy claimed the lives of 40 New Jersey residents from 13 different counties. Sandy damaged or destroyed more than 72,000 homes and businesses in New Jersey. It's unbelievable. 72,000 homes and businesses. Here in our own diocese, the shore towns were hit very hard. Many people had their entire homes destroyed. Some even floated out to sea. I know many of you probably have seen pictures. The pictures just don't seem to be able to tell a whole story. When you go someplace and you know there was a house and now there's no house, no home, it's hard to realize. Towns are shut down. They were shut down to everyone except those that were doing recovery and emergency crews. Some homeowners couldn't get in for 3, 4, 5 days. Some just had to go in even lately and just get their belongings. Some of our Catholic schools were heavily impacted by Hurricane Sandy. My guests today are coordinating the outreach efforts for the schools and for other parts of our diocese. So they're going to share their own feelings and how the impact of the hurricane devastated so much of our own ministries and love, and especially the people. They plan to rebuild, and everyone I've ever talked to, I said, that's what you got to do. You got to look towards April and May and June and July, and all of a sudden see how because that's who we are. That's who we are. See, it's okay to get knocked down once in a while, I think, because the Lord did. But the real men and women that I know, get up. You got to get up. And they'll get up, and maybe it'll even be a little better. So thanks for coming. Thanks for being able to share your hearts. And Joanne Tier is our superintendent of Catholic schools for our diocese. Dr. Margaret Boland is the associate superintendent of our Catholic schools in our own diocese. And they're very, very dear friends. Cynthia Cassioli-Kitts is the associate director of our elementary schools in our diocese. And Bill Wilson, I've known him for a good bit of time. He's our director of property and construction in our diocese, a man who's helped so many priests and answered our questions and maybe told us no. So thanks so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
It's a hard topic in a way. We've seen the news stories. Many of us have been down to these areas that were hardest hit. Can you give us an idea of the impact on some of our schools and some of the other areas that you deal with all the time?
Monsignor, in Monmouth and Ocean counties, our schools were significantly impacted. 2 schools in particular, the school community of St. Rose School and Parish, as well as St. Denis and Manasquan. In Belmar, the elementary school lost its roof, but the high school had over 5 feet of water in the first floor. And that is now evacuated. There is a process for drying and sanitizing the school. St. Denis had 4 feet of water, first floor all impacted with the cafeteria, science lab, computer labs, etc. St. Rose had its offices on the first floor. Just so much devastation to these 2 schools. Other schools were impacted as well in lesser ways, with computers being lost, some trees impacting their schools. But these 2 schools really have a lot of rebuilding to do. And the people are coming together in an amazing way. As we talk about St. Rose High School, we've all visited the schools to show that we are connected with them, and we'll help them in any way that we can. And going to St. Rose High School and speaking to Sister Kathy, the principal, and her teachers and her staff, while I would expected a rather somber experience, there was one of resiliency. There was one of faith. It was lighthearted because they were all pulling together, working together.
Sure.
So the work is significant, but there is much spirit.
You know, when I was a kid, I used to like, I was going to say poetry, but I'm looking at teachers here, and it was only like about boxers and
We
horse
won't praise
players
you,
and
Muncie.
all those things. But there was a poem I knew, up again, down again, up again at 10. You know, you got to get up, and that's what we're doing. We're bouncing back up again, and it'll be maybe bigger and better, and someday we'll look back and say, do you remember the storm back in?
That's right.
You know. But tell me, are schools closed? Have they closed the school? Like the children are going someplace else now? What's happening?
Those schools have reopened.
They're reopened,
We
good.
had the majority of our schools closed certainly during the onset of the hurricane. Some schools were only closed 2 or 3 days in Burlington and Mercer counties, some for a week. The majority in Monmouth and Ocean were closed for 2 weeks. And they have reopened. There's a little cozier feel to the relocation of classrooms. Cafeteria at St. Rose is now in a different area, the gymnasium, but they're making do. So they have.
So they're using the same building, or at least most of the parts of the
Second floor
building.
rather than the first floor, yes. And a lot of sharing. But there is a resiliency, it's talking about St. Rose having such a positive aspect. St. Denis as well. In visiting St. Denis School, the kids it's like an adventure for them. So I know my own children, when they realized that the hurricane was coming and they had some large trees on their property, they had their kids come down to the living room and they set up a little camp. That's the nature of what's happening in our schools. It's an adventure for them, it's short term, and they know that they're continuing to make progress. So the students are phenomenal, and the teachers and our leadership of our principals just make such a difference in the total atmosphere in the schools.
Makes us proud.
Very proud.
Makes us proud. you
Very
know.
proud.
And I think the children are learning a lesson that you don't teach in a classroom, right?
Absolutely.
And we were very fortunate with the emergency crews coming in, and almost as the water was receding, there were contractors on the site starting to pump water and
right.
clean up the mess. And so this is the reason why the schools were open. They were about
That's
2
right.
weeks. St. Rose was out about 2 weeks,
That's
I
right.
think.
That's right.
St. Denis and both St. Rose are both back in action. We have people right now at St. Denis, have been working all weekend, as a matter of fact, and we're trying to get them open as close to normal throughout the school by the first of the year, and that's
They
going on
came
right now.
together as a team
Yes,
at St.
yes.
Rose. There was a meeting on Thursday, the week of the hurricane, and they had their administrative team and their parish team, and Monsignor Arnister was there, and Broadco, the company
Right.
that was working to get rid of the water. They were there for minimal of an hour as a team, and then they segmented into subgroups to talk about what had to be done at the parish level, at the school level. So there was such a community that came forth, and they addressed it right away. There was no stalling at all. It was a matter of, we have to
Right.
do this. How are we going to go about getting the job done?
How about with the teachers, the families, beside the buildings themselves? Was the area, I mean, I guess that area they lost power? Were people
for a long
cold?
time.
Were
Oh, for
people,
sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Monsignor, with the families, we had done a survey so that we would be able to know their needs and find out how we could help them. And of the families that have responded, we had 16 schools that have responded to date, and 345 families were impacted significantly, where they lost their home, they lost their place of employment, their automobiles, or they can't return to their home because the first floor has been flooded. So there is structural damage, there's work that has to be done there. 41 teachers have also been impacted significantly. So there is loss across the board in these counties and in our schools. So there's much to be addressed, and there's much need.
because the big question is going to be safety all the time, right?
Always.
Yes, it
Sure.
I
is.
mean, with gas lines and electrical lines.
Right now in Normandy Beach, the area has been closed to the public till the 9th of December because the gas company is testing the gas lines.
In Normandy Beach.
They have no idea what they're going to find, and so they won't let anybody out there.
So that means anybody who is living there,
No,
That's right. They're not living there.
no.
they're not living
Yeah.
there.
No.
That is one of the things Monsignor is the leadership. You know, it's very often everybody's running around and the contractors are in there, Broadco has been in there, and they're working hard. But one of the things that has really brought this together is the leadership of our principals. They immediately were on site as soon as they knew something was happening. And Sister Kathy Nace texted me on my phone during the storm. And she said, Margaret, this is happening. I know this is happening. And she said, I'm going to get right back to you tomorrow. I will be there as soon as they let me. And as soon as she walked into she went right away to the school. And I think that's what all of our principals did. And then Joanne, in the office of Catholic School, or the Department of Catholic Schools, we had a meeting the following week after this. And we didn't cancel it. We brought all the principals together, and they all helped each other. But their leadership, I believe, was a key factor in this, that they moved immediately. They didn't waste time. They used their Honeywell or their School Reach to connect to the parents, kept the parents informed, and we haven't lost really any students. Our parents, you know, and so the parents have come back to help also. I did visit St. Rose High School myself too. Had to put my boots on, and Kathy and I walked the trenches and the mud and all the rest of it, and to just see the devastation. They had 9 foot of water in the cafeteria, literally ripped out the walls, as you probably have seen, Bill. So all of that has to be rebuilt, and the kids are bringing their brown bagging their lunches. You know, and the other schools are stepping in to help them. So I think that's a critical, the fact that our leadership has really stepped forward, and we have very fine principals, and that has really been a key, you know, for us as we work with them. And so.
Well, that's true. Yes, ma'am.
Just to add on to Margaret's point, our principals immediately went into their school buildings and opened up their school buildings to anyone in the community. They allowed them to put their cell phones on, and they equipped them with blankets and food and diapers immediately. So we've been hearing really heartwarming stories from all our principals just getting in there and helping their communities. And the schools are helping one another.
Yes, they are.
Internally, we have a mechanism where principals can post their needs, and other schools are supplying those needs. So,
What are some of those basic needs? What needs would we still be asking for?
Initially, it was food, clothing, tools. Tools continue to be something that is required. We took a survey beyond the initial impact to find out families that were no longer employed or are now living in other makeshift areas, arrangements, and what that means to them financially. And we found out that there's probably going to be about $300,000 in need to finish out the year for tuition because of loss of jobs, loss of income, loss of housing. They're really in quite a difficult predicament. So we, the principals that are at this point are saying donations of checks are so appreciated because it will help the families, it will help the schools with the tuition that is lacking, as well as gift cards. People can go to Home Depot and buy what they need, or to various stores, Kohl's, and restock what they will need for their kitchens. So I think this is something that is in stages. Initially, it was the most immediate needs, the clothing, the shelter, the food.
Blankets,
Now
and
we're
something people want.
we're going back to a rebuilding process. It was quite interesting to see. There was a group from Mississippi that had contacted our office, and they had come into the area. I returned their call. They said they already had arrangements made. They were coming and staying for the week, and they wanted to know who they could help. They had gone into the Bayshore area, and they had been victims of Katrina, and they wanted to pay it forward. And
Yeah.
there were students, and
lot of
there
people
were
have been
their
doing that.
chaperones,
Yeah.
and they had hammers, and kids were lugging out the plasterboard. Just a beautiful expression of who they are and who we are as a Catholic community.
Great world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
You know,
It
I
is.
mean,
It's-
really,
it's
really,
marvelous.
people are. I don't care what people are wonderful.
They are.
Deep down, I mean, you
Yeah.
know, it's I don't know.
The schools, there's a school in Maryland, in Rockville, St. Elizabeth's in Rockville, Maryland, and my grandchildren attend the school, so they were aware of what was going on, and the principal called and said, Margaret, what can we do? And I said, well, to be frank with you, we need funding. There's no sense bringing in supplies, the cost of bringing them up. Sure. And I said, then this way the schools can get what they need. And they said, we want to help a specific high school or grade school. Tell us one. So we knew there was getting help for St. Denis. So I said, well, perhaps you could, target St. Rose High School. So they've collected over $3,500. Just these kids got the money together.
So if someone is willing to do that, is it good to just give it right to the school, or does it go to the diocese? Because the
diocese has a process. In some cases, they're reaching out to our office and they're looking for specific schools.
They want
so we're matching them. We're giving them the principal's name and number.
Yeah, they want something specific.
We've had stationery stores call and say we want to be able to resupply the schools with the paper that they need.
Yeah.
And hopefully, when this all settles down, there'll be buddies like
that's right.
Right up.
That's
absolutely.
Come on down, visit us.
Absolutely, buddies. That's right.
All the calls that I'm receiving are from Catholic schools, and I'd like to repeat that from all across the country.
Yeah.
Right.
On Friday afternoon, St. Agnes in Minnesota called, and she says, we're collecting cards and we're making Advent wreaths, and we want to send it to a school. And it's very, very heartwarming. And when I speak to these principals, I feel like they're one of ours. So all the Catholic schools across America are reaching out.
Yeah, we have the same philosophy. We do. It's our same mission, and we all have the same mission.
We do.
And the mission is the gospel, and so
We do.
we all. It's being lived out.
Brothers and sisters.
That's right.
Really, that's the truth.
That's right.
It's almost a shame that sometimes something has to happen for us to get more aware of that.
That's right.
But at least that's the growth out of it. That's
right.
that's the resurrection.
That's who we are.
That's the
right.
resurrection.
Resurrection.
There's always-
Absolutely,
There's always,
Monsignor.
that's our faith.
It is our
There's
faith.
going to be a cross, but
It
there's
is
always a
our
resurrection.
faith.
That's
Yeah.
terrific.
Yeah.
Some of the displaced families, the income is hard. Any special story that you might want to just share about that? Where did some of the people have to go? Did agencies take over a little bit, help a little bit? Or?
FEMA has been very prominent in this experience, and our schools are working with Bill's office to close that gap and to be able to be responsive. Our families are also working with FEMA. Some of our families were in shelters. Some were living with relatives. A teacher who is from All Saints Regional School in Manahawkin was living in Philadelphia for a period of time and couldn't return to work until she had temporary housing taken care of. So there's been much disruption. Our teachers, our families. We had a family that has a child at St. Peter's in Point Pleasant, and that school was closed for a 2-week period, as most of our Monmouth and Ocean schools. The family was living in Burlington County, and the child went to school at St. Mary's of the Lakes with the children that they were staying with. Right. So there's just that continuous outreach and adaptability, resiliency on the part of families.
Absolutely.
But we know that there's a period where there was the initial shock, and now there's the grieving and the confusion. What happens now? But there is always that faith as they see the outreach from others and a listening ear. We know that counseling is very important.
I was going to ask that question.
Well, Sister Joanne from the diocese has been working very closely with social services.
That's right.
Right.
Yes.
She's done an unbelievable job.
And Catholic Charities
Right.
will be available to our schools, to our parishes.
She's coordinating all that.
Especially
Yes.
with the trauma part of it. We have counselors in our schools
Yeah, we
which are
do.
doing a magnificent job and are available on a day-to-day basis, especially in the high schools. Elementary
Right.
don't necessarily have the advantage in all of our schools to have the counselors on a daily basis. However, Catholic Charities has opened their hearts and said, if you need us. So we're working with Sister Joanne as we hear of a parish or a school that would like to be to come together, whether as a group or individually.
The loss of a home.
It's monumental.
It is.
Can't comprehend it, I don't think.
No.
You and I couldn't comprehend it.
No.
When you think it's just not the wood, or whatever they're made out of.
No.
No, it's
I mean,
it's everything.
pictures
Yes.
are gone.
Much more than the
things
wood.
that
It is,
you
certainly.
there's no way in the world you're going to get back.
No.
And
And,
small children don't understand. I heard a little story from All Saints where a kindergartner saw his bike and he said, "Mom, why can't I touch my bike? I want my bike." And she was trying to explain to him that you can't, there's germs on that bike. So the small children really have no idea why all their, even if they see their belongings, why they can't take it. So
Tell me, you mentioned germs. What goes on to
Oh.
to mold and other things? I
Part
mean,
of, part of the
what's happening?
cleanup process is not only, first they pump everything out, then they come in and dry everything out, and then everything that has been affected has to be chemically treated to prevent mold and because if it's not treated properly, 4 years down the road after we all do all the reconstruction, that mold will grow back again, will come back again. So it's a big it's a tremendous process, and people don't. It's not on the surface. People don't see that. There's a lot more to it than just pumping the water and drying it out. A lot more.
Now, we mentioned Manasquan, and Belmar. What about Mother Teresa School or other places that were affected?
Mother
or-
Teresa School was not affected as such. However, the community
Was
was
affected.
greatly impacted. And the principal there, Melissa Wisk, was very instrumental in creating an outreach for the entire community in the area, where she was manning the clothing area with other volunteers and just supplying the needs for the families. So Mother Teresa, as well as All Saints Regional, had so many families. 1/3 of the families, I believe, at All Saints Regional were affected by the storm. Sister Jeanette, in the very beginning days, had reached out to cleaning companies and said, the people were able to go back to the island, but they brought back possessions that are so soaked and mildewed, and they need to be refreshed. So the cleaners were taking these items and doing them free of charge as a courtesy. She had contacted some hairdressers so that the people could get their hair done, get their hair cut, and just feel a sense of normalcy.
Right.
Feel clean. Melissa Wisk has a great background in helping, because during Katrina, when they had it was such an impact down there, Melissa was one of the principals who gathered so many things together from the diocese, and actually had a couple of trucks, and they drove down to Mississippi and New Orleans, and so people are coming back saying, "You helped us, we'll help you." But Melissa's done wonderful things in that, and that's a part of who she is, and that she lives out the gospel, and that's what's happening.
what it's all about.
It is what
The
it's
Pay It
all
Forward
about.
group that came up, Melissa found out that it was the group
Group
that
that
she
she-
had impacted when she was in Mississippi.
When she was down there.
So this was
Yeah.
just accidental that it occurred, that it was that area that was selected.
Well, how about your department? What are your long-range plans or?
Well, I'd like to say first that there's a tremendous coordinated effort between all the agencies and all the offices at the diocesan level, and we've been meeting we started last, I think, Friday. We're going to meet bi-weekly with all the insurance people, with Joe Bianchi's office, the adjusters, the contractors, and our office with Scott and myself. And we're kind of walking with this every 2 weeks to get the status, bring it up to snuff. Right now, there's people working in St. Denis. They started there Saturday, as a matter of fact, to bring that school back so that, like I said before, so the first of the year they can get back to somewhere near normal. The same thing is I'm going to be meeting with St. Rose shortly to see what the next step is there. We're taking priorities. We want to get the churches open. We want to get all the schools open and running full bore.
How many churches are not open?
Oh,
Well, we know St.
Pio.
Francis
We know
and
St.
Long
Francis.
Beach Island has been
He's not
impacted.
open.
I
Yeah.
believe one of their churches on the island has reopened.
Yes.
But
Francis was
the
heavily
main-
damaged.
Main
Yeah.
church has
Yes.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was all flooded.
And you would know better than I the
And,
other churches that have been
Normandy Beach?
impacted.
Oh, Normandy Beach had a lot of wind damage because there's a lot of rain the water came in from the roof. There was water up to the first floor level.
St. Rose and Belmar.
St. Rose and Belmar.
Yes.
Wasn't Sacred Heart?
Sacred Heart.
was
They're
in-
having
They have-
Mass in the parish center.
Okay.
But they're working on the church.
Are there
Normandy-
some areas where the churches are
Oh,
are
no.
not
Normandy
functioning at all?
Beach is closed down, Lavalette is closed down.
Yeah.
Seaside Heights, they're working on that. They may be cleaned by now, I'm not sure. Seaside Park, St. Catherine's,
St.
same way. They had
They were
water on the first floor.
closed
Not
down?
much, thank God, but enough to mean they can't hold mass until they remove all the pews, clean the floors, treat the pews, and put them back.
Wow.
So and St. Anne's up in, what's it, Keensburg?
Keensburg?
Pittsburgh.
Right.
Same way, they're working up there. So that we're all over the place, and there's 51 parishes that have been affected. That's almost half
Yeah.
of the whole diocese, whether it's a small or large, and some are major. St. Rose was major, St. Denis was major, St. Anne's was major. There's some real, St. Francis will be major,
Yeah, yeah.
big. But Joe Bianchi's office is they're really doing a great job. It's very difficult. We've never experienced anything like this before, and we're all working together, and that's the beautiful part of it.
Yeah,
All the
this
offices.
is a new experience, especially for our schools.
Yeah.
We're usually the individuals that will have the outreach to give to those affected by Hurricane Katrina and other areas. So this is new to be on the receiving end, and it's a bit foreign.
Yeah.
It is.
Do you all feel that we're going to rebuild it all? And
Yeah.
Absolutely.
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 there's
Yeah.
no church
Absolutely.
will close, and
No, this will.
We will be stronger for
We
the
will be
experience.
stronger for this. We will
Wow.
definitely be
We may
stronger
take a
for
look at
this.
things, maybe some areas that maybe we're thinking about changing or closing, not so much a church, but some of the buildings that maybe not be being utilized. That may have an effect, the storm may have had an effect on that, but we're not there yet.
are there any areas where the churches, I can't picture schools doing this. I'm just thinking of, putting up on pilings. I can't picture a school being put up on pilings, although you never know, I guess, these days.
I would imagine any new buildings along the coast, they're going to be on
We'll have
piles.
different codes
Yeah,
and different
yeah.
ways of doing things.
Yeah, you have to.
Who else is helping you? Some of the other organizations that the government has, or?
Well, Joe's involved with FEMA,
Uh-huh.
and we're working closely with insurance companies. And we're blessed in a way. We have some insurance. It probably will not be enough to cover all the damages, but and Joe's working very hard to work with them, and we're working very hard to try and keep the numbers as close as we can to the bone, so we can get everybody back in.
And if others would like to help, who should they contact?
The
Yourselves,
Diocese,
the Diocese
Diocese
of
of Trenton,
Trenton.
the
Yeah.
Department of Catholic
Catholic
Schools
schools.
will direct them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all on the website. Just go on
Yeah.
www.dioceseoftrenton.org and
Right.
it's all spelled out.
But if they want to really come for the schools, they can come to us, and we will be more than happy to direct them to call.
Well, listen,
We will be more than
be
happy
blessed,
to do
be
that.
proud. It's a
Monsignor.
great example, I think, of the Lord bringing us all together as His people and loving each other. Probably many of you have been affected also, so we do love each other, pray for each other, and help each other, and call them, and they'll probably help you too. Bless you and rebuild. That's God's love.